I pulled over. And I put the car in park, and I fumbled for my phone, and I called him. I called him, and he answered. And I said, "Hey, Joe, it's Michael from Covina." And he goes, "Michael, how are you, buddy?" And I said, "Joe, I just tested positive for HIV, and I don't know what to do." And we talked. We talked, and he said to me, he says, "Michael," he says, "experience it. Experience the good. Experience the bad. Experience it all, and you're going to enjoy life." What he was telling me was to stay in the moment. Sit with the suffering.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas. That was the voice of Michael B. once again that you heard on the beginning of this episode, and you are going to hear so much more from Michael B. in just a moment. But first things first, this episode is brought to you by Sherry, Lara, and Brad. So you ask yourself, what exactly did Sherry, Lara, and Brad do to deserve that mention on the beginning of this episode? Well, they went by our humble little website, www.soberspeak.com, and they clicked on the little yellow donate tab, and they made a contribution. So thank you so much, Sherry, Lara, and Brad. This here episode is coming right out to you'uns. When I said Brad's name, there's a recent commercial on TV, and sorry, I just get a little distracted, like squirrel. And the commercial is two roommates, and then they have this one third roommate who is always kind of hanging around, kind of the loser in the group, if you will. He's like the hanger-oner, doesn't necessarily rent out a room there, but he's always spending the night with him or something, and his name is Brad. And they say, for that roommate, Brad. Anyway, now I actually know the Brad who is donating here on this show, so I feel I could say that. If it was just a regular Brad out there in the middle of nowhere, I probably wouldn't bring it up. But anyway, thank you so much, Sherry, Lara, and Brad. Brad. Anyway, for those of you who've seen the commercial, I'm sure you're going to know what I'm talking about. If not, sorry about that. All right. So, I am just now getting ready. Me and the lovely Mrs. M are going to San Antonio, Texas this weekend for a wedding. And the reason I'm talking about this is because, so we're going for a wedding. It's my best friend from high school, and my best friend is the guy. It was not him getting married. He's been married for a long time. Sorry. His son is getting married, and it's just, and his son was actually in our wedding, me and the lovely Mrs. M, as a what do you call him? He wasn't a flower girl. He's the I don't know, the boy. I think the ring bearer. Is that what the kids do? I don't know. I know the girl was the flower girl, and he was he did something in the wedding. He's all over the pictures. But anyway, we're going down there to see him get married, which is absolutely fantastic. And the guy, the father, who is my friend from high school, like I said, we've known each other for years, and I had my first drink of alcohol with him. I smoked my first weed with him. I did my first line of cocaine with him. There's there's probably some other firsts. Well, anyway, I won't go down that path. But anyway, he's just been part of my life for so long, and it's really cool to see his son getting married, and the fact that we get to um, uh, be there for that and watch that. And so, anyway, that's just on my mind because that is about to happen. All right, now on to Mr. Michael B. Part 2. This one's called Sober Then Stunned, My HIV Diagnosis. Michael is from Covina, California. We discuss the voice inside his head that says, I'm different, and what it means to look for similarities and not differences. He also discusses what it means when the hand of AA reaches out and the phrase, I am responsible. The spiritual malady testing Michael had after testing positive for HIV at 7 years sober. What it means to touch the center of your pain, how to keep the spark in the fire going, and some advice for those who are new to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You're also going to hear him talking about a place called thepuentehouse.org. I'll put the link to that particular residence, what do you call it, residence, sober house, in the show notes for those of you who are interested in it. And if you have any other questions, though, you could just reach out to me at JOHN at soberspeak.com. And remember, we will have plenty listener feedback at the end of this episode. Enjoy Michael B. Part 2.
And then one of the big things that happened to me, I was around 60 days sober, and like I said, I was the only gay guy in this sober living at this time, and I was really using the obsession of the mind, that those voices in my head were really using that to separate me from these guys and from Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was telling me things like, oh, you know what, I bet you, it'll be better if we go to another sober living, right? And so I'm going through all of that, right? Maybe I should find a sober living in West Hollywood. That'll be better for me, right? And I remember I was around 60 days sober, and I'm sitting in this meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was just one of those moments, like when Carl shared behind me. It was a loud guy sharing the same thing that they share a lot, right? And this guy, he was one of those loud voices, and he was sharing the story about when he came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and how he made this or said this thing to this old timer that separates us from other people. And what he shared was that this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and here we look for the similarities and not the differences. Because when you start looking at the differences, you'll see yourself as different, and you'll difference yourself right out the room. And the same program of Alcoholics Anonymous that worked for me is not going to work for you. And I heard him that day. And that voice got quieter for a couple of days, and I got a little bit comfortable. But once again, was not following it up with any action, was not working any steps, didn't even attempt to work any steps. I'm just going back to meetings, like arms folded, looking at the ground, shaking my head. This is not going to work. This is not going to work. And what ultimately happened for me was I was 90 days sober, and I was taking this chip for 90 days at this meeting. And I was going crazy. I was going absolutely then crazy because I'm not working any steps. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting in meetings and not listening. And I'm not listening to the music of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's like they say, there's no recovery in me and there's no booze in me, and I have to drink. Like I don't have a choice anymore. And and I'm not, and what people like, I'm not listening. So what people are trying to say is that like that I suffer from this spiritual malady, that I have this soul sickness, and I'm not hearing any of this. And so I'm 90 days sober. I'm taking this chip for 90 days. I grab the chip from the chip person. I'm walking back. I'm storming back to my seat, and this little old lady, she stands up in my path and she puts her hands on my shoulder. She goes, "You're the miracle," you know. And I just wanted to punch her right in the throat, you know, and throw her on the ground and run across the block to down the block to this liquor store and drink, right? Because like that's all that I knew how to do to change the way that I was feeling inside. And I sat down and I was so angry. And this guy sitting next to me, he was I knew him. He was in my sober living, and he goes, "Bro, you got to call your sponsor." And like I wanted to throat punch him too, um, and uh, and I did. I say that I took the most contrary action that I'd ever taken in my life up until that point, and I did something that somebody else told me to do, and I called my sponsor. And my sponsor at the time, he answered the phone, and he answered the phone, and I think maybe I had called him once or twice in the almost 3 months that um, I had asked him to sponsor me, and he answered the phone, and I said, "You have got to change the way that I feel inside. I can't do this anymore." You know, and I always say that he was a man who knew his responsibility in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is when the hand of a dying alcoholic reaches out and asks for help, that you are the one that is responsible. And he came over to my sober living that night, and he brought a big book. He gave me one big book, and we sat down and we began reading the big book. He would read a little bit, I would read a little bit, and when we got to a step, we work it, you know. And he began to show me the evidence of my life. He began to teach me what the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind is. We began to talk about the spiritual malady and identify the spiritual malady in my life, you know. And by the time that he left me that night, it was a long night, um, and I was on my fourth step.
Wow. So, all right. So that's a very cool story. So that's how you got started, right? Just kind of, and this happens to all of us, right? We're kind of at the bottom. We don't know where we're going to turn. We run out of choices, and then we turn and look at it. Charlie P. used to say that we're in the looking at it from a different perspective business, and that's what it sounded like happened to you. You were able to see this from a different perspective. Well, tell me a little bit about nowadays. What's going on, and like I mean, kind of summarize the past. How many years have you been sober now? I didn't do the math.
15. Yeah,
15 years.
15
Okay.
years.
So
Yeah.
summarize the past 15 years for me if you can. In about a minute and a half.
It's been great. um, uh, Challenges. I think one of the things I talk about a lot is when I was 7 years sober, I tested positive for HIV, and that's something that really rocked my life, or rocked me. I was in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had commitments. I had sponsees, and I was trying to do at that time in my life everything that I needed to do to stay in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had gone with a friend to support him to get tested. He was scared about getting tested, so I'll go with you. I'll support you. And while we were there, it had been 6 months since my last test, and so I figured, oh, why not? I'll get tested too. And they called him in, and he came out a couple minutes later, gave me the double thumbs up, and we were, thank goodness. Good. And they called me back, and they sat me in the room, and the woman said that they do two tests. They swab your mouth, and then they take a little bit of blood, and then you got to wait for 20 minutes for the results. And she said to me, she said, your first test came back reactive, and so we took a closer, more conclusive look at your blood, and it confirmed that you had HIV. And the minute that she said your first test came back reactive, you know, just that heart, just pounds, and I began to get that tunnel vision, and I just wanted her to stop talking, right? And I wanted her to stop talking so that this crippling fear would go away. And and we left. It was a Friday night. It was Friday evening, and I didn't tell my friend that day. I didn't tell anybody that day. And I just sat in my car at that clinic for what seemed like the longest time, just going, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do?" And I had a commitment at my home group at the time. My home group at the time was the Living Sober group on 14th and Olympic in Santa Monica, and I was the literature guy. And the only reason that I was the literature guy was because the literature guy before me, sometimes he wouldn't show up to the meeting. And I think it's very irresponsible to have a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous without any literature. And at one of our business meetings, I shared this. And everybody at my business meeting went, "Okay, Michael, if you think that you can do such a great job, we nominate you." And so I was kind of railroaded into this commitment, and I'm fine. I will do this, and I will be the best literature guy that you guys have ever seen. I will be here each and every week with the literature, and except for this one night, and I just wanted to go home. I wanted to hide from you. I wanted to hide from myself, and I wanted to hide from God. And uh, except I just made this big stink at my home group. Um, and so there's a saying around here that you can't save your ass and your face at the same time, but I disagree with that because it was pride and it was ego and it was what you know, I, I what I uh, what I cared about what you guys thought about me, and that got me to show up to that meeting and set that literature up. And I did, and I just sat in that meeting with my arms folded, looking at the ground, going, "What am I going to do? What does my life look like now? What is happening?" Like a newcomer again. You know, and not listening to anything going on at that meeting. And I remember we we circled up after the meeting, and here around Southern California, we kind of sometimes we take a moment of silence for the alcoholic who suffers inside and outside of the rooms. And it was one of those exceptionally long moment of silence, those awkwardly long moments of silence. And I just remember going, "God, please remove this fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be," and the next thought that came into my head was, there are three newcomers here who I've never seen. Bet you they don't have a book. And I bought them a book, and I made a plan to read the book with those guys. And that's what I did. I just, I just, I took a lot of newcomers hostage, over the next year, and told them when we would read the book, I would read the book with these guys. I would take them through the 12 steps, and all the while I would, go into doctor's appointments, things. I got on treatment right away. And you want to know where Joe
Right.
plays into all this?
Yeah, I just thought about
So the
that as
week,
soon as you said it.
so the weekend, I was about 7.5 years sober. It was May 5th of 2017 when I tested positive. The very next weekend, I was registered for this roundup in Palm Springs. and I didn't want to go. And I was registered. My best friend at the time, I had told him, and I told him I'm not going to go. Just take somebody else. Give them my registration, and he convinced me to go very reluctantly against my will. And he says, you could be miserable at home, or you could be miserable in a hotel room in Palm Springs. I'm taking you. And so I went. And I just met Joe. He's a bubbly, wonderful guy. Who's, again, like I said in the beginning of this, he's just one of those that you are just attracted to his soul, his and you feel comfortable and invited and welcomed. And I'd kind of just latched onto that weekend, and we got to know each other a little bit. At the end of the weekend, we swapped numbers, so we'll stay in contact. And I was really wrapped up in self a lot then, because of fear and things like that. And so I never didn't think about Joe after I left. And it was a couple of months later. I used to have this CD set of this convention or this conference called Woodstock, that happens every year in State Line around Las Vegas. And on it is one of my favorite speakers. And one of my favorite talks from him is on this. And I listen to it a lot. And it was mid-July. And I remember pulling that CD out, putting it back in the CD case. And I remember flipping through. I'm like, I wonder who else is on this. I've never really listened to. My sponsor was on that. Carl was on that CD. And I'm flipping through, and I see Joe C from San Diego, and I'm like, huh. I wonder if this is that Joe that I met in Palm Springs. And so I pop it in, and it didn't take one sentence, to recognize that voice, and I'm like, oh my God, it is. And so I started listening to his talk, and I remember where I was driving. I remember where I was driving to. I was driving on Badeo Street here in Covina. I was heading to Costco, and he gets to the part in his story where he tested positive at 8 years. And I pulled over. And I put the car in park, and I fumbled for my phone, and I called him. I called him, and he answered. And I said, "Hey Joe, it's Michael from Covina." And he goes, "Michael, how are you, buddy?" And I said, "Joe, I just tested positive for HIV, and I don't know what to do." And we talked. We talked, and he said to me, he says, "Michael," he says, "experience it. Experience the good. Experience the bad. Experience it all, and you're going to enjoy life." And kind of what he was telling me was to stay in the moment. Sit with the suffering. I read this thing around this time about touching the center of your pain. We tend to want to run. We tend to want to run away from the uncomfortableness, to run away from the suffering, to run away from the pain, to run away from what we're going through. And if I could sit and experience it and touch the center of that pain and sit with it, and be okay with it, and be okay, and recognize that I'm okay in this moment, and Joe taught me that, and we've just been linked ever since. I talk to him all the time. I see him a lot. I just saw him this past weekend. And so that's just a part of some of the struggles that I've been through in sobriety. And it's one of those things that has drawn me closer to God, has drawn me closer to um, spirituality, and maintaining this daily reprieve that's contingent on my spiritual maintenance. And so it's vitally important. It's become vitally important to me over the years to maintain a conscious contact with a power that's greater than myself, so that I can be where God wants me to be, so that I can see who God wants me to help. And um and I just try to do that. I just try to do that on a daily basis. Try to wake up every morning and sit in prayer and meditation. Okay, God, where do you want me to be today? What do you want me to do? and then just try to pay attention throughout my day. Like I can't I can't do that. I can't hear where God wants me to be if I'm not, living in God's world and practicing these spiritual principles. So that's just try to where I try to be.
How is your health overall?
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm healthier than I've ever been. You know, uh, I called Carl the very next day. Carl, my sponsor,
Mhm.
uh, and he was the second person that I told, and I called him the next morning, and I told him, and one of the things that he told me, which he says, "Well, you were doomed to live an extremely healthy lifestyle," and he was right. I'm healthier than I've ever been. One of the every fear that I had in the beginning of this, it was just irrational, right? Um, uh, I take my treatment is I take one pill. It's about the size of an Advil, and I am what is considered undetectable. The viral load is so low in my body that in my blood that it's undetectable. I can't transmit it to anybody, and yeah, it's something that's very managed today in this life that we live in. So it's my health is great.
Good
Yeah.
for you. Good for
Thanks.
you. And so so I would assume that by you being vulnerable about your health and what's gone on and your diagnosis and such, that there are others that you have been able to help throughout the years. Am I right about that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. In the beginning of this, I told one of my friends when I told in the beginning. I didn't talk about it for a long time. I didn't. There were about a dozen people that I told in the beginning. I kept it a secret. I asked them to keep it a secret, not tell anybody. And it was just one of those things that for months just ate me. It's those secrets. And I remember when I told a friend of mine. He says, "Oof, you're going to have the power to help a lot of people." And I said, "No, I'm never talking about this. I'm never talking about this." And and I've just come to learn over the years that everything that I have ever gone through, everything that I'm going to go through, it's not about me. It's about helping another alcoholic. And I learned that in the rooms of AA. And so, yeah, that's the part of the third step prayer that I pray every morning. Use my experiences to help others. Where do you want me to be, God? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? What will help somebody else? And so it's just become one of those things that, I do. I share about it at the podium, and sometimes in some circles, in some places that I speak at, I'm reluctant to talk about it, but I do. And there's, it's I have learned to do that because um, I of the I was just telling somebody the other day, uh, it, it, um, uh, that for whatever reason I've spoken at a lot of meetings and a lot of and I don't just uh, 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 I speak at a lot of meetings and in some areas sometimes I can go into them and going, oh, I don't think these people are going to like me and or like what I have to say, and I can get judgmental on myself and I can get scared. Um, and
So
I
is that where the
remember
reluctance comes from? Is that what you mean? The
yeah,
reluctance to
yeah,
share because you
yeah,
think
it's
people might not
self.
like you? Gotcha.
Yeah, it's self, part of my prayer before I speak is God speak through my heart and I just help me to not care about what other people think of me. um, because that's one of the things that stands in the way of my usefulness to God and my fellows. But I remember it was, I spoke about that at this meeting where I didn't think people would like me, and I didn't think that people would like that about me. And there was somebody who shook my hand in line, squeezed it really hard, really tightly, and just mouthed the word "thank you." Thank you so much for that. And I knew what he was saying. I knew what he was saying, and so it's just I walked for so many years without a connection to another human being, without a connection for God, and the only way that I was connected to either one of those is if I was drinking, and now through Alcoholics Anonymous, I and through you know uh, um, uh, uh, overcoming the spiritual malady, I'm able to connect to other human beings, which is my connection to God, and so it's an incredible tool. I hope that I can get out of my own way at the right moments to help who needs to be helped. That's just always my hope and my prayer.
So you have a lot of people that are listening to this in all four corners of the world right now. Some are, they've been in AA for a while. They kind of know the deal. There are others who are out there kind of on the fringes, so to speak. I get people who write in all the time that, they've either been thinking about Alcoholics Anonymous or, they don't know if they're an alcoholic or they or don't have the courage to go into the rooms because they're afraid for one reason or another, right? If you were to kind of talk to those people and share your experience, strength, and hope regarding your experience in AA, what it's meant for you, why don't you just kind of talk about that for a second?
I struggled so hard in the first 90 days because I didn't do anything. I just sat there. Um, I sat there thinking that this is what Alcoholics Anonymous is. And I sat there thinking that looking at all these happy people hugging each other, so happy, laughing at meetings and things like that. And I hated them. I didn't think that they loved the effect produced by alcohol the way that I did. I always talk about that. I loved, that feeling, those moments before I would pass out drunk, just those moments of laying there of just oblivion. I loved that. And I couldn't understand when I was newly sober how you didn't love that too. And I didn't know that you did love that too. And I didn't know that I until I started allowing myself uh, to get to know you, or allowing myself to be gotten to know by you. I didn't start realizing that until I started listening to you and really listening to what you were sharing and really listening to really letting you speak to my alcoholic soul. Um, because when I did start listening to that, I I think there's something that happens in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that if you're an alcoholic, you could just sit there and you can think that this isn't going to work for you all you want, but if you listen, the music of Alcoholics Anonymous, the voice of Alcoholics Anonymous, that depth and weight that we talk about, that we carry, it goes into your soul and it begins to awaken it, right? And you begin to be jolted by that. And that's just what happened to me in the beginning. And I see it happen to people all the time, to newcomers all the time. And but that's not enough. Just for that to enter my alcoholic soul, that's not enough. I have to keep that spark going by the work of alcohol, by doing the steps, by having these commitments, by by uh, uh, by being of service to a meeting, by helping other alcoholics. I have to keep this fire going in me. And as long as that fire keeps going, my soul can grow bigger and bigger and bigger. I think our souls are not just confined to just our chest. I think it's infinite. And I think that fire can burn that soul bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think for me, I think that's what happens, when we get into the center of Alcoholics Anonymous, when we listen to others, when we give back, and we do the steps, and we continue to do the steps by taking other people through the steps. We just this soul expands, and we continue to have this spiritual awakening. And it's the greatest thing in my life. And if you're new, if you're wondering if this is going to work for you, keep wondering, but listen. Go into meetings, listen, and when you feel that in your soul, take it, get it, right? And go, okay, I got to get into the book. I got to get a sponsor. I got to work the steps. I got to get a commitment, right? Because I really think that there's only like a finite amount of time, maybe a day or two, maybe even less of that window of when those magic words hits our soul, right? And we get a little bit comfortable, and we get voice gets a little quieter, that we just got to get into action, right? And then it can expand even more, even more. So if you feel that in your soul, that thing in your soul, and you'll know what it is when you feel it. Get into the action, get into work.
I love it. So, I just want to tell you what, first of all, you don't know me. You don't know who you're talking to out there, right? But I did notice that as we moved throughout this interview, you became more relaxed, more yourself, more vulnerable. And I could tell you were thinking about others, thinking about helping and trying to be, the man of God that you want to be for yourself and between you and your own higher power. And it was nice to watch that kind of throughout this interview. And I'm so glad that you were here with me today, and I'm so glad you were able to share your experience, strength, and hope with all our listeners.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for reaching out to me. And
Have you ever been on a podcast before?
yes, I did one several years ago. I did one.
Well, this is the real podcast. Okay.
Okay.
those
Deal.
those other people are just imitators.
Yeah.
Okay, I always wrap it up with page 164 from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And here we go. It says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us, like me and Michael B. As you trudge the road of happy destiny, may God bless you and keep you until then. Once again, my friend, I'm so glad we were able to cross paths here. When you are out in the Dallas way, or I come to LA, I would love to meet you eyeball to eyeball. I think it'd be fantastic.
You got it. Deal. Like I can't wait to one day be able to give you a big hug.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Okay. God bless you, my friend. Thanks again.
Bless you too.
Once again, my friend Michael B., so good spending time with you, and thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with the listeners out there. I know they enjoyed that. And remember, if you're out there listening, we do not want you sharing your toothbrush, but we would absolutely love for you to take time out of your schedule, pause your device, and share that episode with another friend or with a friend or family member. It may be just what they need today. Once again, Michael, thank you so much for your time in. And as a reminder, I'm going to put the link to puentehouse.org, which Michael referenced in this episode. I'll put that in the show notes just in case you need it. All right. All right. Now, on to a little bit of a listener feedback. Chris writes in, and Chris says, oh, I wish I could say this email address on the air, but obviously I do not want to share that. It's just a really cool email address, but we'll just leave it at that. The message says, hey, John, I am in Al-Anon working with a sponsor that wants to do the 4-step the AA way. I was driving myself nuts trying to draw the form, then driving myself nuts trying to put it in a spreadsheet, and I got to the point to where I was spending more time trying to get the form down than actually doing the step. I swear to God, I could kiss you full on the lips for this. Thank you very much. Whoop, whoop. Well, Chris, I'm not really sure how to react to that. I guess to say thank you. I don't know if the lovely Mrs. M, by the way, I don't know if Chris is a guy or a gal, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think Mrs. M would want me kissing either. Or receiving a full on, what was that? I could kiss you full on the lips for this. You're welcome. And by the way, just in case you don't know what Chris is referencing is on our website, we have all sorts of forms and step guides, and the lovely Mrs. M has put just about all of those up there. So if you ever want to go to our site, soberspeak.com, and check those out, feel more than free to do such. And we have, like I said, we have Al-Anon forms, AA forms, AA step guides, Al-Anon step guides, the whole 9 yards. So you could tap into those resources free of charge, I may add. All right. Mick writes in, and the subject line is responsibility statement. And I think we talked about the responsibility statement on one of the previous episodes. I don't even remember who I was talking to, but Mick writes in and says, hello, John. I listen to your podcast and I'm grateful and thankful for what you are doing. My name is Mick G, and my sober date is 4/26/89. Wow, Mick, I just realized something. We are like a month apart on our sober dates. So we were wreaking havoc on the world at the exact same time. And God blessed us around the exact same time. And he says, and I'm absolutely amazed and grateful for the life I've been blessed with. I'm writing because I heard something I thought was questionable. So I did my own deep dive into it. I've been using an AI tool to scour the internet and give me what I'm seeking. Below is one of the things that AI found about the responsibility statement. So this is from AI. Like I said, we talked about the responsibility statement on a previous episode. But anyway, here's what AI says. It says, all of them seem to suggest the same. A trustee AI submitted it at the 1965 Toronto International Conference. The responsibility statement was not specifically developed to foster financial contributions, or was not within AA, but it indirectly reinforced the organization's principles of service, self-support, and group responsibility, all values deeply connected to AA's financial structure. The primary intent of the statement was to inspire members to reach out and help anyone suffering from alcoholism, emphasizing that, quote, the hand of AA, unquote, should always be available when someone seeks help. That's what I thought. While the statement does not mention money or contributions directly, AA literature often explains that I'm sorry, I lost my place. Well, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Really good podcasters would be able to keep their place. Oh, that a healthy fellowship depends on members responsible and not only for outreach and sponsorship, but it also for sustaining AA's activities, including financial support through voluntary contributions. This means that AA members internalize the message of responsibility. Some also may become more active in supporting group functions, including financial obligations required to keep meetings and services available. In summary, says AI, fostering financial contributions was not the stated goal of the responsibility statements, but its ethos of personal and collective responsibility has helped strengthen AA's tradition of financial self support as one aspect of maintaining an accessible and effective fellowship. And then Mick says, thank you from a former Texan. Well, thank you, Mick. Mick G. Well, thank you, Mick. Appreciate you writing in. God bless you, my friend, and thanks for scouring the internet for us on that subject. Megan writes in, and Megan says, hi, my name is Megan. I live in Grafton, Ohio, 30 minutes southwest of Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, that Cleveland, Ohio. Laugh out loud. I am 40 years old and I have been sober for 11 years. My sobriety hasn't been that great, but had been the great. I'm sorry, I messed that up. But anyway, she says it's more downs than ups, with my mental health getting worse as the years go by. And no, my physical health is declining. I found your podcast last year when I wasn't able to make it to meetings due to my mental health. I listen as often as I can. My favorite was Tracy J. The episode about her being 10 years sober and then trying to commit suicide really resonated with me, being that I became suicidal at 10 years sober myself. Drugs and alcohol and suicide were never an escape for me before. Sleep and books always were. Now, drugs and alcohol still aren't, but suicide sounds real good a lot of the time. I have 2 teenage kids, and I have a whole have whole other families, so they don't need me either. But if I were to kill myself, they wouldn't get the $125,000 life insurance money, and sometimes that's the only reason I'm still here. But I love your podcast, John. It has truly saved my tushy. And I love your laugh and side comments and commentary. Poo-poo on anybody that doesn't. LOL. Thanks for your service, Megan. Well, Megan, as you know, I responded to that. Thanked you for your kind words about myself, but I was a little concerned about some of the other comments you had. I copied Tracy J on that email, and I know y'all exchanged numbers and emails, and hopefully y'all have been able to talk and you have found a place that is where you are comfortable within your own skin. Okay? God bless you. Thank you for writing in, but please take all that serious and get in touch with Tracy, and y'all have a good talk. All right? Tracy writes in, not the same Tracy we were just talking about, but another Tracy. And Tracy says, hi, John. I've been following Sober Speak since the beginning. All your guests have had a great message of recovery, but I especially like Chris S. and Dave S. I live in Southport, Oak Island, North Carolina. And again, thank you for carrying the message to all of us. We are truly blessed. So, by the way, Tracy, I thank you so much for that message. But I also want to let you know I've been out to Oak Island, North Carolina. Actually, I think a couple times. I love it out there. It's a beautiful area. We stayed on the ocean. I love the sand out there. I love the ocean out there. But anyway, I digress. All right, everybody. That right there is another episode of what is this? Sober Speak in the books. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I take this 1 week at a time. I hope to be back next week. May God bless you and keep you until then. And just remember to keep on sobering on. Sober on. Like I said, I've been playing with that little tagline lately. I haven't quite got it down. I don't even know if I'm going to continue to use it. But nonetheless, sober on. Bye-bye.